Well, hi, I'm David Flores, and this is Matt.
And I'm Matt Carroll.
And basically, we're going to talk about today how we develop this Chrome extension. But before we even go there, I think it's sometimes more important to realize that we didn't develop this extension because we were bored, but rather because we found we really needed it, right? So it all started like a couple of weeks ago. Matt tried to go into healthcare.gov and enroll into one of the health insurance plans on the open enrollment, right? And when he went there, he found a screen that was very complicated and basically a whole bunch of options that you cannot really make sense unless you do something else. In Matt's case, he was actually going through Excel sheet or Google Doc, a spreadsheet, just like plugging data to try to understand which plan was better. And when you have 30 options and you have like a million cells or rows that you have to go through, it kind of doesn't make any sense, right? So he started ranting about this on Facebook, and I figured he was right. And I was like, you know what, let's do something about this. And that's how we got started on this idea. And at the beginning, we were like, okay, how can we do something that's going to be useful where we're going to have the user do the less amount of extra effort, but at the same time, we can use real data, and assuming this data will change all the time with everybody, like how is that even possible, right? So at least me at the beginning, I was thinking we're going to do an app and it was going to communicate with this thing somehow, very complicated. I had no idea. I mean, I was like overwhelmed just by thinking about this. But somehow we thought about an extension, and a Google Chrome extension actually turned out to be the perfect solution, because there are two ways of doing an extension. You can do the browser extension, which are like these, like the analytics I have here. If I click analytics, those are the browser extensions. But there are also page extensions that you tell basically Google Chrome, if you're in a certain page, you can do something with it, right? So what we decided to do, we decided to do the page extension that will only work if you're on healthcare.gov. And when you're there, you'll see the little doctor guy. You click there, and it will then scrape all the information from you. So you only have to do basically 2 clicks and then answer some questions so that we can actually make this happen. And that's what we ended up doing. And I'm going to show you really fast. So did anybody went through healthcare.gov, the website at all? No? Just 2 guys? 1? Okay. So this is the way it looks. So you have to go, to get to this screen, you have to spend like at least 20 minutes if you're fast on the computer. Like after you went through all these, you see all these options. And really, I just selected 3 plans here, but there's like 30 plans. And then you see, I mean, in this case, I have like all these subsidies and all these, but you see all this pricing information.
My premiums are way more expensive.
Yeah, mine, I'm poor, so yeah. But
I'm going to be poor after I pay for these premiums.
So what you see, you get all this legal, medical lingo that makes no sense, like 40% co-insurance after deductible, 30% co-insurance, $5 in-network, not cover out of network. So how do you make sense out of that, right? So, and this is the comparison. So this is their comparison tool. I'm supposed to understand what's happening. And if you select more than 3 plans, you only see 3 plans at a time. So you actually have to scroll vertically to see more plans. So you can never compare everything at once. So I still find it very hard. So what we did, after you go through everything and you're on the compare screen, we created this app that it will show up only on this page. So if you're on some other page, it will not show. And if you're not on this screen, we actually made a website so it will teach you how to get to this screen. The whole point is that you have to be in this screen because it will not work elsewhere. So once you get to this screen, we're asking people basically about how they expect to use healthcare next year, right? How many times are they going to be visiting the primary care physician? How many times they're going to go to a specialist? How many prescriptions? And all this medical information, right? The good thing is that because it's a Chrome extension, there's no server-side anything. There's just code in the browser, and it's not like invading privacy or anything. It's just like you're giving information to your computer, and we don't even know what you're putting. So that was pretty cool, I thought. So once you put all this information, so I'm just gonna put something in here too. to populate something.
X-ray scans.
You can break a lot of boundaries.
Yeah. So once you click that, you click save, and we went through some feedback loops on this, and you guys can give us feedback at the end. But basically, right now, it tells you on the right whatever input you had, so you kind of remember. And then the only thing you have to do is estimate my cost, and it's giving you a comparison. It's telling you the total with the cheapest plan first, based on the inputs that you put before and the information that's below on the comparison screen. So this is the cheapest one for me, and this will be like my annual cost if these things were to happen. And then the second one is the second cheapest one, and so on and so forth, right? So I use it to pick my plan, to pick my girlfriend's plan. He used it to pick his own plan. And I thought it was pretty cool that we actually did this in a couple of weeks. And well, he did most of the job really. I just did little images on Photoshop and stuff. So the way the extension works, it's very interesting. As I said before, you have two options, right? You can do the Chrome in-page extension, or you can do the browser extension. And both of them are pop-ups, but then the in-page extension, it will only work on the page that you detailed. So it will look for the domain or the whole URL, and it will only appear there. Whereas the browser one will always show for people. So that was kind of like the neat thing we find out about that. And then there's this is kind of like the code, the structure. The extension is called Obamacare, and I thought it was pretty funny. But the only file you really need to have is the manifest, right?
Well, not entirely.
Okay, so Matt's gonna explain this better.
All right, so I'll look what you got here.
All right.
So you do need a manifest file to define an extension. And when you upload the extension, or even when you load it locally into the browser, the manifest is what the browser uses to make sure you have what you say you have and provide certain access rights. So this, I don't know if everyone can even read this,
How do you
but
make it bigger?
Make it command plus.
Command plus? Yes, command plus. There you go.
there, old people style. So there's some basic necessary meta information that's required: the name, the description, the versions. I believe at least one icon is required, but we've provided a couple here at different sizes. Below that, we enter into things that are optional, things that we needed for this extension in particular. So you see page action. So David referenced the page version of the extension, and that's where we define what that actually is. So we provide an icon, a title, and a pop-up HTML page. That's what comes up when we click that icon. And the reason it appears in the address bar is because it's a page action. It's not a general browser action. But if you wanted a browser action, it'd be that same kind of structure, just browser action instead of page action. And then it's visible all the time, no matter what page you're on. We've defined a background page, and even though there are page actions, the way that you activate the page action is that you need a background page that's kind of always around, and it realizes you got to the right page and it turns that action on. That's really the only reason we had that separate background JS page there. Content scripts are the scripts that are able to run in the same scope as the web page itself. That's kind of an important distinction to make. There are multiple JavaScript scopes. For example, namespaces. There are multiple namespaces that are associated with these extensions. There's one for the page action. I believe there's a different one for the background. And then there's the actual web page scope that you can access with the content scripts. That was vital for us because we're scraping that page. We had to get access to the HTML to extract the data. That's why we have content scripts. And then permissions, like anything you give to Google, you have to tell them what you want to do so that users, when they download this, can understand what you're going to access. And honestly, the first one, I don't even remember what that was for, but it was necessary. Then storage, obviously, when you enter in your information, we want to hold it so that you can scrape many plans without re-entering the information, so that's the storage permission. And then tabs are required. I think one, to check what page you're on, but two...
So you can take the active tab, right?
Well, since we have the page action, the background page, and the content script, the way those all communicate is through an API that requires access to the concept of tabs. Because you can theoretically have 10 tabs open, right? So It's just a necessary thing to speak between those three different pages. And did you have other specific things within the code base you wanted to look at?
No, I mean, at least I was very surprised that really everything else is just an HTML file, which is the HTML, and then the JavaScript. And that was all. I mean, I really thought it was going to be super complex. But it turns out to be...
This is all of it right here.
Yeah, it's
not
that complex.
We got our styles. We have the pop-up HTML. I created a test page which only existed to test the way that we were processing all that text in there, because you noticed it was all English text, right? It wasn't, they didn't provide you with something useful like a number that you can easily apply. You have to parse the text and understand what it means. You'll see, in here are all these test cases that we wanted to make sure were processed correctly. But then our background page is here. Again, this is the one that just identifies when to turn the extension on. So you see that we're looking for the URL that contains healthcare.gov. We included jQuery locally because it was kind of a pain to get out to the internet to pull libraries in. The pop-up JS, this runs in the pop-up that appears on the screen. This file here is kind of just our own local library. And this one, this is some kind of event system. But it really is just like a normal web page, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and just a few extra pieces to get them talking to one another.
Yeah. So, yep.
So, what was the terminology again? You did a page extension versus a full Chrome extension?
Yeah, both of them are extensions.
Yeah, the extension artifact itself is exactly the same. Okay. There's no differentiation between the thing you would upload for pages versus browser extensions. In fact, you can have an extension that has both browser actions and page actions. So it only comes down to this manifest file where all we registered was this one page action. But we could have had multiple page actions. We could have had multiple browser actions. It's just a matter of defining it in the manifest and providing the source code for it.
And in practice, the only difference will be that the icon, if you're in some other website, you will not see. Like if I go back to the computer and I go to Chrome and I have another, you don't see that little doctor here anymore. But if you go to the healthcare, you'll see that.
Right, but go to Google and show that it disappears there. Notice right in the same tab.
Oh, okay. I don't know that's the analytics page.
See how it's gone.
Gotcha. And is there any inherent difference in complexity building one versus the other, or is it really just dependent on what you're actually building?
It's probably the latter. There are going to be some differences, but because you're going to choose one or the other based on what you're actually building. So whatever that complexity is, it is also tied to the specifics of what you got to do.
Gotcha.
Yes.
So can you guys talk a little bit about what deployment was like? Did you package it up and upload to the Chrome store?
Yeah. So local testing. I'll start with that and then go to the store. Sure. Local testing, you enable essentially developer mode in your Chrome browser, and then you point to the directory that holds all the files, and it takes it from there. Now the store, you need to zip up that source, and then you upload to the Chrome web store. But it is just a zip. There's no certificates. There's no signing locally. Like if you've done Android or iOS, you probably hate signing stuff because you always have to do it. But in here, there was none of that.
And just to go over that little really fast, it's like when you go to Chrome extensions, the website, you click here on developer mode, and then you click on load and pack extensions, and you look for the folder that contains the whole thing. It doesn't even have to be zipped, right? It's just the folder.
Not in developer mode, no, it doesn't have to be zipped, but
so
to the web store it does.
You just go to that folder, you click load or open, whatever it says, and then you'll see it here. Then you click enable, and it works. It's super easy.
One more question. So in production, if you pushed it out, had a JavaScript bug and it crashed, do they let you know, or are you responsible for kind of notifying yourself?
I don't believe there's any dashboard for it. You got to install your own scripts that are monitoring that or somehow reporting it, I think. Now you do get access to special APIs that are Chrome APIs, and one of those might make it easier to do that kind of bug reporting. But we didn't look into that, so I can't tell you for sure.
We did install analytics though, right?
We put Google Analytics in there, which works almost identically to normal Google Analytics integration. Just some differences in what you put in for the URL in Google Analytics because there is no URL for a Chrome extension. And there were one or two other little things, but we got it working. We just followed some websites.
No more questions?
So you're basically scooping the information over the website, right?
Yeah.
Did you receive any like support from them or?
No, we
No.
just did it because.
We didn't ask them either.
Yeah. I
I
mean-
mean, we'll apologize when they send us a cease and desist.
Just throw it away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked because if they update the IDs or update the website, you need to be like
Yeah,
updated also because
We're
Yeah.
on the hook for that. So
yeah,
if
it comes with it.
yeah, so we gotta keep testing kind of every week, make sure it still works. And they did. I think they did make some changes while we were building the extension. And they also have this tendency to turn off the website at night because apparently it's like a brick and mortar store.
Dark website.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess they understand the internet's not a dump truck, but they don't understand it's not a lamp. So they just turn it off at night. But yeah, that's on us. We gotta take care of it.
Mike.
You guys have any automated tests set up yet?
No.
No.
You gotta expect more changes, the season's coming up again, right?
Well, open enrollment just ended actually.
Oh, it did?
So from now until like next November, sorry if you don't have insurance, but short of what they call a life event, moving, I think changing jobs or some other major
Well,
thing,
that
you are
marriage.
barred
Yeah.
from even using their system.
No, but it's open until February 15th if you are not employed. Like if you work for a big company, it already ended. But if you're self-employed, you still have time.
And,
You have to learn all this.
Yeah, and I mean it's like David said. We built this for the both of us. We really did use this to choose our plans. And I actually was going to choose a plan that would have been far more expensive because I said, what would I choose before this extension? And I waited until we were done. And I was going to go with this low premium plan because that sounds right. I'd rather pay $195 a month than $315. But it turned out, I mean, I do have certain expectations of seeing doctors next year, and that plan would have been way more expensive than the $315 a month plan that I ended up choosing. And the only way I knew that was by using the extension. So,
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, well, if anybody wants a copy of the extension, I can just give it to you.
Go ahead, do it. My mom needs insurance.
Yeah.
You know, she's
Quick question, how do you make the correlation between the parameters that you give in to the plans?
we use national averages for the costs, and so it definitely is a best guess.
Yeah.
But seeing your general practitioner has a relatively consistent cost across the country, as well as specialists, chiropractors, etc.
So what are you scraping off from the site? Like the 3 plans that you've chosen that you're happy
Well,
with?
so
went out.
David did say you can only see 3 plans,
Yeah.
but what you can't tell is that if you choose 15 plans,
Uh-huh.
they're all
You're
there.
choosing
They're just
3
hidden.
at a time.
Right, but we
Yeah.
can scrape all 15.
Okay.
So we can take everything you've selected at one time, and we read their English text descriptions of the benefits, and we turn that into a cost structure. And the cost structure is a JavaScript object that says essentially there's some cost pre-deductible and there's some cost post-deductible.
Okay.
And that object, when you give it a visit, can apply the cost. And so we're keeping, this goes into kind of how we built the process, but it'll take each of the needs that you said were required, it spreads them out across the 12 months in the year, and it goes through and it applies one after the other after the
To
other.
see how much it would cost. Okay.
Yeah.
Right,
So that was also very tricky because you don't go healthcare on one day. Like you consume it differently. So
Yeah.
we had to. Well, he had
Yeah,
to work with that.
again, I mean,
And
it's
it's
not-
a guess at the
it's
end.
not perfect, but we figured the best thing we can do is spread it out across the year. And I guess one reason that it becomes even more complicated is because the rules of what those different requirements costs, those are different. Like the idea of whether the deductible applies or not will change. So if you did all your general practitioner visits and then you followed that with all your x-ray scans, that could give you a different result than doing 3 general practitioner visits and then your x-ray scan. So it's, even with our simple tool, it's still difficult, but
Yeah.
it's hopefully way
And
better
also-
than the nonsense they
Best
do.
guess.
Yeah, I mean, and if you have chosen insurance before, you get to the point like the basic example would be the primary care physician. Like one plan would say 40% co-insurance, and then the other plan would say like $25. So which one's cheaper? Like how do you know?
Yeah, how do
You know. So this just made it all numbers. So you know. So that's awesome.
Getting an extension like this where the user's interacting and giving their like personal information to it, I know it's like just trapped in the browser, but can you guys, like from the extension standpoint, send off a little something back to you to like start tracking the data yourself? So essentially,
If
you're
we
If we would have coded, yeah.
If we wanted to, we have full control to do that. It might require some more permissions in the manifest that I showed you, but there's nothing technologically preventing us from doing it.
Google doesn't
Though,
just say no to
well,
that.
Google would say no. Come on, it's cool. They know.
but for the record, we are not tracking
We are not tracking
any
camera.
of the input that
Yeah.
you provide in there.
But you have to ask for
Some
permission.
guidelines against that.
What was that?
You have to ask for permission though.
Maybe, I mean, maybe you have HIPAA there already. Like if you start getting all this information and you get into more things, we don't know. I don't know. But yeah, we're not doing it, so we haven't looked into that.
Do you have so many people have used it, or?
3 so far, for sure. I can tell you. Well, and 4 with Mike's mom.
Well, so if you got any friends, the big problem is that a lot of the people that are shopping on this exchange don't even know what a Chrome extension is. And we knew that was going to happen, but again, we built it because we had a problem. Our hope was that other people would
You
know
need to
it.
get the word out.
Well, and the other point is we really push it on the 13th, so it's not like there was time, but
Be ready for next year.
yeah, I mean it's there. Hopefully it works, and some people have shown some interest, and you know, like I said, if you guys want to use it, I'll be more than happy to give it to you.
Here's a question that you don't know. Why the hell isn't this functionality built into this freaking website?
Well, hold on. We only spent $1 billion in this website. What do you want from them?
Yeah, we shut it off in the night, so just be mindful of that.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks. Right click on the QuickTime icon.
Okay.